4 in the afternoon, July 15th, a shopping mall in the middle of Metro Manila. The doors of the Glorietta Activity Center are about to open, and a 21-year-old left-hander is about to walk into the loudest room of her life.
I think it's a continuous process of learning things. Professional tennis, my journey in professional tennis has already been so long, but it's only getting started.
She did not win Wimbledon. Read that again. She lost in the round of 16, and a telecommunications company just built her a homecoming that most Grand Slam champions never receive. That is the collision at the center of this story. And notice what the tension is not. There is no rival waiting in that atrium, no scandal, no feud. The tension here is pure emotional weight, and it is heavy. A 21-year-old is being asked to become a national celebration in public on a schedule she did not set, before she has been given the quiet to feel her own loss. To understand why a mall atrium in Makati is about to become the most emotional room in tennis, you have to rewind 11 days to the exact afternoon that changed the category Alex Eala lives in. Start with the timeline, because the speed of it tells you everything. On July 4th, on center court at Wimbledon, Alex Eala beat the defending champion, Barbora Krejcikova, 7-6, 6-2.
Game 7 match, Eala.
The champion is beaten.
2 sets to love, 7-6, 6-2.
That is not a fluke result. That is a 21-year-old Filipina taking out the reigning Wimbledon winner in straight sets on the sport's biggest lawn. Within hours, Maria Sharapova posted 2 words about her on Instagram. A star. Billie Jean King met her in person. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, posed with her courtside. In one afternoon, Alex Eala walked off a tennis court and into a completely different tier of global recognition. 2 days later, on July 6th, Jasmine Paolini closed her out in 3 sets in the round of 16. Eala led the second set. She forced a decider. She could not shut the door. Her Wimbledon was over. And then came the part that no scriptwriter would have predicted.
Jasmine Paolini is back in the quarterfinals.
6-4, 4-6.
And she is back playing at such a high level.
On July 7th, one day after the loss, Eala opened Instagram. Not to talk about the defeat, not to promise a revenge tour, she posted a thank you to the Filipino fans who had filled the London stands with flags. Gratitude before grief. 2 days after that, on July 9th, Globe Telecom went live across Facebook, Instagram, and X with an announcement. Home court, the Alex Eala Meet Experience, a public homecoming at the Glorietta Activity Center. Free entry, gated through the Globe One app. Registration at 4 in the afternoon, program at 6 sharp. From heartbreak to homecoming in 72 hours. That is not a company reacting. That is a company executing a plan that was sitting in a drawer, waiting for whenever her Wimbledon run ended. If you have been following this rise from the early rounds, do this now. Name the exact date you think Eala breaks the WTA Top 20. Drop it in the comments and let the timestamp prove you called it. Then keep watching, because the Makati event is only the surface of what is happening here. Now put 2 versions of this same fan meet side by side, because the contrast is the whole point. In July of last year, Globe hosted Eala at the Globe Tower in Bonifacio Global City. Invite only, a private corporate setting, controlled, quiet, exclusive. 1 year later, they moved her to a public mall atrium in the busiest commercial district in Metro Manila, with free access for anyone willing to download an app. That is not a scheduling tweak. That is a corporate confidence vote. Globe is betting that Alex Eala can pull a general public crowd off the street on a Wednesday evening in the middle of a work week. A year ago, they wanted her in a boardroom. Now they want her in front of a country. Look closer at the access mechanism, because it tells you how serious the demand is. Every attendee has to download the Globe One app to secure a slot. Sit in that decision room for a second. A telecommunications company just turned a fan meet into a customer acquisition funnel, because they already know the demand exists to justify it. That is what it looks like when a national fan base stops being a sentiment and becomes commercial infrastructure. Companies do not build funnels around athletes they are unsure about. They build funnels around certainties. And here is the detail that makes the Glorietta event singular. According to Filipino sports coverage, this is Eala's only significant public appearance between her Wimbledon exit and the Mubadala City DC Open, which begins on July 27th in Washington. One event, one window, one evening between London and Washington, where Filipino fans get to look their tennis hero in the eye before the American hardcourt swing pulls her back into competition. Now consider who has publicly stamped her name, because the endorsements are not ordinary. Sharapova is a 5-time Grand Slam champion, a former world number 1, a Wimbledon champion at 17, one of the most globally recognized tennis figures of this century. And here is the layer that makes it heavier than any other endorsement in the sport. Sharapova is the exact player a young Alex Eala once named as her idol. The person who crowned her is the person she once dreamed of becoming. Within 24 hours of the Krejcikova win, that person looked at the result and typed 2 words: a star. That is not encouragement. That is a lineage being transferred. And the Glorietta event is what that transfer looks like when it lands in a home country that has been waiting for permission to celebrate at this scale. Now zoom out, because the national weight here is real. The Philippines has produced world champions in boxing, in pool, in volleyball. Never in tennis at a Grand Slam level. Not until now. Every serious Filipino sports fan knows the phrase that followed Manny Pacquiao at his peak: the pride of the Philippines. That title is now being informally handed to a 21-year-old left-hander from Quezon City. And a public mall event, hosted by one of the country's biggest corporations, is the closest thing to an official ratification of that handoff. Here is your quick reminder before we go further. If this channel has been part of your tennis feed, subscribe so the next chapter lands in front of you the moment it drops. From Makati to Flushing Meadows, every step is getting covered here. Now for the honest counterweight, because this story has a real doubt inside it, and pretending it does not would be an insult. Eala did not win Wimbledon, she lost. She was up in the second set against Paolini and could not convert. She has never won a WTA main tour singles title at the top level. The skeptic's argument is simple. A mall homecoming for a round of 16 loss is hype outrunning results. Hold that thought, because it deserves a real answer, not a dismissal. The answer is in the shape of the year. This is not one spike. Look at the curve and walk it stop by stop. A breakthrough run in Miami earlier this year. A semifinal in Berlin on grass, built on top of upset wins over higher-ranked opponents. A WTA 125 title in Birmingham, a trophy in hand on the grass, and then the round of 16 at Wimbledon, with a straight sets win over the defending champion sitting inside it. Line those 4 results up in order: Miami, Berlin, Birmingham, Wimbledon. That is not a lucky week, that is a staircase. And the people who noticed it first were not the broadcasters. They were the fans who stayed up for 3 in the morning matches at Eastbourne last year, who watched the early rounds when there was no highlight reel waiting on the other side. You were not early. You were correct. The rest of the tennis world is only arriving now. Every corporate partner she has is scrambling to catch up to that staircase in real time. The homecoming is not a reward for one match. It is a bet on a direction. The industry press has already said the quiet part out loud. Front Office Sports framed it plainly, calling Eala one of the biggest draws in tennis right now. Read that phrase again. Not one of the biggest draws in the Philippines. Not one of the biggest stories of the summer. One of the biggest draws in tennis. Full stop. When a business outlet measures an athlete in those terms, it has stopped talking about promise and started talking about market value. And market value is exactly what Globe Telecom is buying a slice of at Glorietta. There is also the practical brutality of the calendar, and it is worth sitting with. A 21-year-old is being asked to fly home from London, walk into a mall packed shoulder to shoulder, take a microphone, and become a national celebration, before she has even had the room to process a loss that ended her Wimbledon less than 10 days earlier. 9 days to grieve, 0 days to breathe, and in between, an entire country waiting in an atrium. After Glorietta, the schedule does not slow down. Washington for the Mubadala City DC Open on July 27th, then Cincinnati, then the Canadian Open in Toronto, then the US Open in Flushing Meadows, starting in late August. 4 tournaments across roughly 5 weeks, every one of them now watched by a fan base that multiplied on July 4th. And there is one more comparison the Filipino fans keep raising, so let it be said out loud. In January, Eala drew a crowd at Rizal Memorial. 6 months later, Globe upgraded the welcome from a stadium visit to a corporate homecoming in the busiest mall district in the country. The question is not whether the Makati event is big. The question is whether it is already smaller than what comes next. A mall atrium in Makati is going to be the smallest room she plays in for the rest of this run. Everything after it is arenas. So rewind the whole tape one more time. July 4th, Center Court, Sharapova types the words, "A star." July 6th, Paolini closes out the third set. July 7th, an Instagram post thanking Filipino fans instead of mourning the loss. July 9th, Globe Telecom announces a public homecoming in a Makati mall. July 15th, 4 in the afternoon registration, 6 o'clock program, a 21-year-old walking into a room full of the people she says she plays for. She did not win Wimbledon. On July 15th, in a Glorietta atrium, she is going to receive the welcome of someone who did. And that says more about what she has become to the Philippines than any trophy ever could. So here is the question worth arguing about in the comments. If Eala takes that microphone at 6 o'clock and looks out at the crowd, what is the one thing you want her to say to the country? And does this Makati homecoming outweigh everything that came before it, or is the biggest moment of her career still ahead? Drop your answer below. When the doors open on July 15th, and when the run through Washington and New York begins, you will see every step of it here first.